So viewers, these are key messages from the Ministry of Basic and Secondary Education on the coronavirus. Dear parents, keep children at home at all times. Avoid sending children to shops and markets. Do not engage children in petty trading on the streets and garages. Allow children to play within the confines of the home. Limit visitors into your homes. Adhere to COVID-19 health precautions and guidelines. Schools are closed, but learning continues. Dear teachers, you are encouraged to desist from all forms of group activities involving students. All school premises should remain closed and not to be used for any other purpose. Thank you.
Good day, viewers. I'm here today with you again to look at the biology section, and we are going to be talking about the blood pressure and more on the circulatory system of the mammalian body. Right now, we wonder, what is blood pressure? Everybody talks about blood pressure. Blood pressure is simply the force of the blood exerted on the wall of the blood vessel, which we feel the highest blood pressure in the arteries, and we measure the structure or this blood pressure by using a material which we call a sphygmomanometer, which when we go to the hospital, they tie around the arm, they pump a device, and it gets tightened on the arm, then it's being read, which we use to measure the blood pressure. What brings about blood pressure? It's simply the heart pumping blood through our vessels. We have the pumping of the heart, which we call the cardiac cycle. What is cardiac cycle? Cardiac cycle is brought about by the simultaneous contraction and relaxation of the atria and the ventricles. When we have the contraction of the heart muscles, we call it the systole. And when we have the relaxation, we call it the diastole. So what brings about diastole and systole? When the ventricles relaxes, we call that the ventricular diastole. This brings about a drop in pressure in the ventricles, which then causes the semilunar valve in the two arches to close up. When they close up, it gives a soft dub sound. This closing of the semilunar valves prevent the backflow of the blood into the ventricle. Then this drop in pressure in the ventricles also causes the bicuspid valve to open. When this happens, we have an increased blood pressure. The increase in the blood pressure forces the bicuspid and the tricuspid valve to close, preventing the backflow of the blood into the artery, into the atria, which produces a soft or a loud lob sound. Then when the pressure in the left ventricles becomes higher than the pressure in the aorta, the semilunar valves in the pulmonary and the aortic arcs are forced open. Then the blood flows from the left ventricles in the aortic into the aortic arc. Then the ventricle relaxes and the ventricles contract and the atria relaxes. So what are the importance of the heartbeat? It is for the circulation of blood, which contains the oxygen and the nutrient, and it also helps in the detection of the pulse. Then it helps the doctors to diagnose the hypertension. That is what we call the high blood pressure. So now we go further to look at the major vessels in the body. We have arteries, we have veins, and we have capillaries. Yes. But every artery has a name, every vein has a name. So we are going to look at the structure in which this particular artery carries the blood to, and the structure in which the vein carries blood away from. Looking at the structure which we have in front of us, we have the neck and the head, which is supplied by blood, which is being carried in what we call the carotid artery. So the carotid artery supplies the neck and the head with blood, while the jugular vein is the one that will return the blood from the head and the neck back to the heart. Then looking at our forelimbs, the forelimbs are being supplied by what we call the subclavian artery. The subclavian artery carries blood to the forelimb, while the returning veins are called the subclavian veins. Then to the lungs, the blood is taken from the heart to the lungs through the pulmonary artery. Then the pulmonary vein returns the blood from the lungs back into the heart. Then looking at the chambers of the heart itself, the heart contains cells, and the cells of the heart are supplied by blood through the coronary artery. I repeat, the heart is supplied by blood through the coronary artery. Then we have the aorta taking blood away from the heart and takes it down to other structures of the body. Then it branches at the liver, where we have the branch of this, we call that the hepatic artery. The hepatic artery supplies the liver with blood. Then the hepatic vein takes blood away from the liver. Then looking at the guts, that's the stomach and the intestines, we have the arteries, which we take the blood from the guts. We call this the mesenteric artery. It will take the blood to the guts. Then there is no mesenteric vein, because if we have been following, we've had a trend: subclavian artery, subclavian vein, the pulmonary artery, the pulmonary vein, but there is no mesenteric vein. What we have is hepatic portal vein, which takes the blood from the stomach and the intestines to the liver. And we wonder, why don't we have a mesenteric vein? It's simply because the food substances that are being digested needs to be regulated by the liver, so it does not go into the direct circulation. It first goes to the liver, where the liver will regulate the substances in the blood before it's being circulated. So therefore we have an hepatic portal vein. Then looking at the kidney is supplied by an artery with blood, which we call the renal artery, and the deoxygenated blood is taken out from the kidney through the renal vein. Then we have the iliac artery taking blood to the lower limb or the hind limb. Then the iliac vein is the one which will take blood away from the limb. We have other structures, other veins, other arteries, like the femoral artery and vein, which supplies the femur or the thigh with blood. So now we look at the heart disease. We have what we call the coronary heart disease, which can be caused when we have the coronary arteries being blocked or they are narrowed. This could lead to what we call the heart attack. Then the part of the heart that does not receive enough oxygen and the nutrient will shut down, and the heart muscle dies, which could lead to death. So what could cause coronary heart disease? We have the atherosclerosis, which we have the building of cholesterol or polysaturated fat depositing in the inner membrane of the arteries. When this deposits, it tends to narrow the lumen and increases the blood pressure, because more blood will be pumped to that area because the heart needs blood. Therefore, as more blood is being pumped, then we have more pressure, which increases the blood pressure. So, and we could have what? The thrombosis, that is clotting of blood in the arteries. So what are the preventive measures to avoid coronary heart disease? It's simply the use of unsaturated fat. And sometimes the way in which we even use our oil at home when we fry, the oil which has been used to fry should not be reused again, because now we have what we call the unsaturated fat. It will have saturated fat, which will lead to building of cholesterol in the lumen of the artery. Then we should eat food which is rich in dietary fibers like roughages, oranges. You take the mango, we take pawpaw, we take vegetables. Then we manage our stress level. Then smoking should be avoided to avoid heart disease or coronary heart disease, because nicotine and carbon monoxide tend to affect or blocks the coronary arteries. Then exercising regularly strengthens the heart muscle, which maintain the elasticity of the atrial walls. So now the last part in which we are going to be viewing is what we call the blood genetics. Blood genetics. We'll be wondering, what is blood genetics? Here we are going to talk about the blood group and how blood can be transfused in the body of human. I'll be making a lot of reference to our genetics note, where we will talk about the genetic terminologies, what we mean by the homozygote, the heterozygote. Then we are going to talk about some other structures which we have here. Now, looking at blood genetics, we first look at blood groups and certain substances which we have in the blood. We have what we call the antigen. Antigens are surface proteins which are found on the red blood cells. The presence of an antigen on the blood cell determines the blood type of the person. We have two types of antigen in the body. We have antigen A and antigen B. The presence of antigen A or the presence of an antigen determines the type of blood. So looking at the types of blood, we have blood types. We have type A, we have type B, we have type A, B, and we have type O. And what are the types of antigen that are found in these blood types? Blood type A has what we call antigen A. Blood type B has antigen B. Blood type AB has antigen A and antigen B. And blood type O has no antigen at all. Now going further, we look at the antibodies. Antibodies we talked about in our previous lessons. They are present in the blood to fight against pathogens. Antigens react only with antibodies react only with other antigen in the body. When it comes to this, somebody who has type A only has antigen A in his body. Somebody who has blood type B has only antigen B. And person with blood type AB has both antigen A and antigen B. And type O has no antigen at all. Looking at this person's body recognizes antigen A, but does not recognize antigen B because it doesn't have that. This person has antigen B, so his body recognizes antigen B alone and does not recognize antigen A because it does not have it. For this person, he has both antigen A and antigen B, so he recognizes A and B because he has both. Then for this has no antigen, therefore it does not recognize any of A or B. So if they are going to produce antibodies, antibodies are there to fight against foreign bodies. Therefore, if anything foreign is to enter into this body, if anything foreign is to enter, it is antigen B. Therefore, someone with blood type A having antigen A will produce antibody B, or what we call the anti-B antibody, as we have here. Someone with blood type B will produce anti-A antibody because his body does not recognize antigen A. Then somebody with type AB we produce no antibodies because he has A. When A enters, it is welcome because it recognizes it. When B enters into the blood, it recognizes it. So therefore, it produces no antibodies. Then when O, we have someone with type O, his body will produce both anti-A antibody and anti-B antibody because he has no antibodies or he has no antigens at all. So when this occurs, it leads to what we call agglutination, which we talked about something of such in the previous lesson. We say it is a clumping because these antigens are found on the surface of the red blood cell. So therefore, they clump, they stick together, the blood cells that are having these foreign antigens. So we are going to look at how it is. Here on the next slide here, we have blood group A having only antigen A, blood group B having only B, AB has both, then O has none at all. This is how they appear. So therefore, if you go to the lab, you want to check your blood group, or what they only check for is the presence of an antigen on the red blood cell. Then the type of antigen found on the red blood cell is one that will determine what blood group you belong to. So we are going to look at how transfusion is done. What is blood transfusion? Blood transfusion is the transfer of blood from a person who has a blood or who is viable of giving the blood, which we call a donor, to another person in need of blood, which we refer to as a recipient. What makes a person to need blood? Take for instance, he could have low blood count, we could have transfusion in that process, and another time it could be probably someone just delivered and he lost a lot of blood, so they have to transfuse blood into the person. Or another case, it could be an accident in which the person is bleeding, therefore he will need a transfusion. So we are going to look at how transfusion is actually done, because blood is not just given from one person to another. We need to look at compatibility. If there is no compatibility and the blood is being transfused, it could lead to what we call agglutination, leading to the death of the recipient. Somebody giving the blood, the giver, is called the donor, take note, and the person taking the blood, that is the person receiving, is called a recipient. A recipient. So we are going to look at the blood types and how it's being given. We are going to consider the antigen and the antibodies. So look at the donor. We look at the recipient. Donors, A could be a donor, B could be a donor, A, B, and O could be donors. Then for the recipient side, you have A, you have B, you have A, B, and you have O. When you're having a table like this, you need to have a key where you have no agglutination, that is for a successful transfusion. If there is no agglutination, which will be successful. So we could put that as positive. Then when there's agglutination, that is an unsuccessful transfusion. We put that as a negative. There is a little trick I want you to take note of. When you are giving the blood, you consider the antibodies which the recipient can give. Because take for instance, I go to the blood bank, I donate blood and I leave. Whatever is done with my blood, I wouldn't know. If it will lead to an unsuccessful transfusion, I would not know. Therefore, we tend to only look at the antibodies of the recipient and the antigens present on the donor. So what are the antibodies in which a type A can produce? Let's have them together. All right, here we have anti-B antibody. Here you have anti-A antibody. Here you have no antibody. Here you have A and B. Take note of that. So the way we are going to give the blood is simply as follows. Wherever you have antigen A corresponding to an antibody on the recipient, we don't give the blood, because it means such person will be able to produce an antibody to fight against that antigen. Because only antibody A can cause a clumping of antigen A, and only antibody B can cause a clumping of antigen B. Therefore, when you have corresponding antigen to antibody, you don't transfuse the blood. So now let's go forward. So here you have a donor of type A and this is antibody B. So we can say this is a successful transfusion because the antigen and the antigen here are the same. But for here, this donor has an antibody B. This will produce it has antigen B, and this will produce an antibody B. Antibody B will fight against antigen B. Therefore, we don't transfuse the blood. I believe we are following. Now going to the next one. We have antigen A and we have antigen B. Like I said previously, wherever you have a corresponding antigen to the recipient's antibody, you don't give the blood. Here you have antigen A, antigen B, and here you have antibody B. Therefore, you don't give the blood because of the presence of the antigen B corresponding to the antibody of this recipient. Now we look at this donor. This donor is type O. He has no antigen whatsoever, and this has antibody B. Nothing foreign is entering his body. Therefore, you can transfuse this blood. Now going to the type B. Type B here has antibody B A and antigen B. And type A has antigen A. Antigen A corresponds to antibody B. Therefore, you don't transfuse the blood. This antibody B does not correspond, so you transfuse the blood. For the next one, you have antibody A here, antigen A and antigen B. Therefore, antigen A and antibody A correspond, so you do not transfuse the blood. Then to type O. Type O has no antigen. Therefore, it cannot be affected by the antibody A, so you transfuse the blood. Then we go further to the recipient of AB. For AB, he has no antibodies at all. Therefore, when A enters, A and A are of the same antigen. Therefore, you transfuse the blood because there is no antibody to fight the antigen A. Same thing with B into AB. AB has no antigen, no antibody, and B antigen corresponds with the B antigen in AB, so you transfuse the blood. Going to AB and AB, definitely they are the same blood type. Therefore, you transfuse the blood. Then to type O as a donor. Type O as a donor has no antigen. And type AB has no antibody. No antibody, no antigen equals to successful transfusion. Then we go to blood type O as a recipient. And type A as a donor. Type A has antigen A, and blood type O as a recipient can produce antibody A and B. Antibody A corresponds with antigen A. Therefore, you don't transfuse the blood. Then to the donor of type B. Type B has antigen B, and type O as a recipient has antibody A and antibody B. Antibody A and B, then antibody B can clump antigen A. Therefore, you don't transfuse the blood. Then to the donor of type AB and a recipient of O. Type AB has antigen A, antigen B. Type O can produce antibody A and antibody B. Antibody A will clump antigen A, antibody B will clump antigen B. Therefore, you don't transfuse the blood. Then going to type O. Blood type O has no antigen, and blood type O as a donor produces antibody A and antibody B. Antibody can only clump antigens. Therefore, as there is no antigen to clump, therefore we can say it is a successful transfusion. Looking at the blood which we have on the structure or on the note which you've been taking, we can see that on the recipient side you have type AB, which can receive blood from O, can receive blood from B, can receive blood from AB, and can receive blood from O. So we refer to it as a universal recipient. A universal recipient is someone who can receive blood from all blood types. A universal recipient can receive blood from all blood types. Then looking at the donor side, the donors, we have O can give blood to A, blood type O can give blood to type B, blood type O can give blood to type AB, and blood type O can give blood to type O. Therefore, we refer to them as universal donor. So we say universal donor equals to type O. I know it's very interesting looking at what the doctors do in the hospital when they give us the blood, because all this is being put into consideration with the other step which I'm going to put forward to us, and we find it that it's very interesting. Blood is not just being given from one person to another. A lot is being considered for blood to be transfused. But what happened was that after all this was being considered, it was later seen that some people will still be having what we call agglutination, leading to the death after transfusion. Then further investigations are being made, and a particular antigen was later discovered on the red blood cell, which we call this antigen a resource antigen. So we refer to it as resource factor. It was first discovered in a species of monkey which we call the rhesus monkey. That is why some people were asking me one day, they said, Mr. Ade, is it true that we have the monkey genes? Then I told them, what is monkey gene? They said, those that have the resource factor have the monkey genes. Actually, it's not monkey genes. It's everybody. No, not everybody have it, but many of us have it. That does not mean it's a monkey gene. But it was first discovered in the monkeys. So the presence of the resource factor makes a person to be resource positive, and the absence makes a person to be resource negative. So we are going to consider how this affects the transfusion of blood. So every blood type has either a resource positive or a resource negative. That is, we are going to have blood type A positive, A negative, which means that type A positive is blood group A having antigen A, but is also having the resource antigen. But someone having blood type A negative is having antigen A, but does not have the resource antigen, making the person to be resource negative. So we consider how we transfuse the blood. Looking at the donor, considering the resource factor and the recipient. Let me put it aside because we are going to have a rather large table from here. We have the donor and the recipient. When you have a donor having the Rh positive and another recipient, that is the person receiving the blood, having Rh negative. For this person, or let's first take a look at the positive to positive. This has a rhesus factor, this has a rhesus factor. Therefore, this is not a foreign body entering this person. Therefore, are we going to have agglutination or not? I guess it's not. That will be a positive transfusion. Now looking at the other one, when you have a rhesus positive donor and a rhesus negative recipient. This person has the antigen. This person does not have the antigen. Therefore, when the blood of this person is being put into this, it's a foreign body because antigen entering into the body and your body doesn't have it makes it to be a foreign body. Your body reacts to it like a pathogen. Therefore, it releases an antibody to clump that pathogenic structure, which is actually an antigen, which brings about clumping, so we cannot transfuse. Then going forward, we have the rhesus negative. That is somebody without rhesus factor giving somebody blood which has a rhesus factor. This has no antigen. This has an antigen. No foreign body is entering into the body. Therefore, there is no harm to be done. Therefore, we transfuse. I believe we are all following. Then going to this, we have a rhesus negative to someone who is also rhesus negative. This has no antigen. This has no antigen. Therefore, no antigen will lead into no antibody production. Therefore, there will be no clumping. Therefore, there will be successful transfusion. Please don't let us use our mathematical expression of plus times plus is plus, plus times minus minus, because when you do that, you still have minus times plus, which you have plus here. Then you get confused. Just take note of the presence of the antigen and the antibody. I'm going to take an extract of all the structures or all the blood type. I'll take one from randomly, then we'll look at how to transfuse. Because if we are going to take a whole lot of them, it becomes a little bit boring for us. So looking at this, we have a donor side. Or let me put it on top to show you that you could have a donor on any side and recipients coming from any other side of the structure. We have a donor, a recipient, and a donor. Looking at the donors, we could have A positive, A negative, B positive, B negative, AB positive, AB negative. We have O positive and O negative. On the recipient, we have A positive, A negative, B positive, then B negative, AB positive, AB negative, O positive, and O negative. So we have our chart in this way. Like I said earlier, you should have a key to show anybody going through your work. What does your plus mean? What does your minus mean? It could be X and it could be what? The correct sign. So we have plus equals to no agglutination. Then you have your minus which is agglutination. Minus will be agglutination. That means it's not successful, so you don't give the blood. Remember, when we're looking at the previous table, I made mention of making your work easier by writing the antibodies in which the recipients can produce, because the blood will be transfused into their body, then it's in their body we could have any reaction taking place. So to make your work easier, you can just state the antibodies which will be produced. For type A, we produce the antibody B. Type A, we produce B here. Then B, we produce antibody A dash, because AB produces no antibodies. Then O, we produce A and B. O, we produce A and B. Taking note of all this, we take them randomly, which I want you to finish it, and you tend to cross-check afterwards in your textbooks. You have a donor here having antigen A, and this is a recipient having antibody B. Antigen A cannot be clumped by antibody B, therefore it's going to be successful. You put that aside on your rough sheet, because you are considering two factors now, the antigen and the antibody, then the resource factor too is being considered, so you need to also consider that. This is resource positive to resource positive. As you have your table here, positive to positive will be positive. As both of them check the block, you give the blood. That is a successful transfusion. Then going to the next one, this is A to A. It is successful, but now we consider the resource factor. This is resource positive and resource negative, and as we see it here, when a donor has a resource positive and this recipient is resource negative, you do not transfuse the blood, because this will produce a resource antibody clumping the blood together, leading to agglutination. As they both do not check, you have one is positive, the other is negative, you do not give the blood, so it is negative. Now considering blood type B as a recipient. This is a donor of type A, and an antibody A will be produced in type B when antigen A enters. Antigen A will be clumped by antibody B, by antibody A. So therefore you don't give the blood, because you have to give the blood when both factors check. If one does not check, you don't give the blood, you move on to the next one. So looking at type B, this also has antigen B, antibody A, and this has antigen A. Therefore, you do not give the blood. Then going forward, we have type AB, having no antigen. Having no antibody, but type A here, right, has an antigen A. Therefore, there is no antibody to fight antigen A. And considering the resource factor, this is positive to positive. So, no antibody to an antigen is positive. Then, resource factor, you have positive to positive is positive. Therefore, you give the blood. I hope we are finding this interesting, because this is what we do in the hospitals. Now, looking at this. This is type AB, having no antibody, and this is type A, having an antigen. Therefore, no antibody to an antigen, you transfuse. Then we consider the resource factor. This is resource positive, this is resource negative. Therefore, positive to negative, we give you a negative, so you do not transfuse the blood. Considering this, Type O has antibody A and antibody B. And blood type A as a donor has antigen A. Antigen A will be clumped by antibody A. Therefore, you don't give the blood. Same thing with O negative. O negative also has antigen A and antibody A and antibody B. And A positive as a donor has antigen A. Therefore, you do not give the blood. Then we come to A negative. A negative here has antigen A positive as a recipient has antibody B. Therefore, they are not corresponding, so you can give the blood. Then we consider the rhesus factor. This is rhesus negative, this is rhesus positive. There is no antigen, rhesus antigen, which can be acted upon here. Therefore, you give the blood. Then this is A to B as a recipient. So, the antigen and antibody do not correspond. The rhesus factor of negative to negative is positive. Therefore, you give the blood. I see we are going a little bit faster because we are getting used to the steps. So now we have A to antibody A, which will bring about clumping, so we don't give. A to antigen A and A correspond. Same, you do not give the blood. Then coming to a recipient of AB. Recipient of AB and a donor of A. A is an antigen here and there's no resource, there's no antibodies here. Therefore, it can be transfused. You write it out on your rough paper. Then you have negative to positive. There's no resource factor. Therefore, you can give the blood because you have a negative to positive is positive. Then here you have negative to negative. It's here you can give the blood. Then you have antigen A and there's no antibody. Same thing, you can transfuse the blood. Then going to the next one, type A as a donor has antigen A and type O as a recipient has antibody A and antibody B. Therefore, you don't give the blood because A will clump A. Same thing goes to this. The antibody and the antigen are corresponding. Here you have type B and type B, antibody B and type B having antigen B. They correspond with one another. You don't give the blood. This and this correspond to because B and antigen B correspond, so you do not give the blood. Now coming to type B. Blood type B as a donor and entering the body of type B as a recipient. It can only produce antibody A and it does not correspond with antigen A with antigen B. Therefore, you can give the blood. And positive to positive, on the chart we have here, you can give the blood, so it is positive. Then going to the next one, rhesus positive to rhesus negative, we bring about agglutination. Therefore, you do not give the blood. Then coming down here, rhesus positive to rhesus positive you can give, and this does not produce any antibody, so antigen B does not get clumped up. Therefore, you can transfuse the blood. Then a donor of a rhesus antigen and a recipient having no rhesus antigen, there will be agglutination. Therefore, you do not transfuse the blood. Then right here, antibody A will clump antigen B. Sorry, antibody A and antibody B present here will bring about the clumping of the antigen B. Therefore, you don't give the blood. Same thing goes for O negative because it contains antibody B. Then going to the blood type B negative as a donor, we have A positive as a recipient. Type A produces antibody B, and this has antigen B. Therefore, you don't give. Antibody B corresponds with antigen B. Therefore, you do not give the blood. Then B to B, you can give the blood because they have the same antigen, but this is rhesus negative and positive. On our chart there, negative to positive is positive, so you can also give the blood. Then coming down to this, we have B to B. Negative to negative, on the chart here, you have as a successful transfusion, so you give the blood. Then type B to antigen A and B, it's successful because it has no it has no antibody, and negative to positive is also successful, so you give the blood. Then looking at this is negative, this is negative, so we can give the blood. And this has no antibody, this has an antigen, there can be no clumping, so you can give the blood. Antibody A and antibody B on type O. We clump antigen B on type B, therefore you do not transfuse, it's negative. Then antibody A and B on type O negative, we also bring about clumping of antigen B on B negative, so you do not give the blood. Then type AB has antigen A and B, and this has type A positive as a recipient as antibody B, which will bring about clumping of antigen B. Therefore, you do not give. Same thing here, you do not give because they both have antigen B. Then here you have antibody A and antigen A, you do not transfuse. Antibody A, antigen A, you do not transfuse. Here there is no antibodies on type AB positive as a recipient. Then this is also AB as a donor. They have the same blood group, so you give the blood. Then AB positive as a donor has a rhesus factor, and AB negative as a recipient has no rhesus factor. Now looking at our chart, we have positive to negative, which will bring about agglutination, so therefore we do not give the blood. Then coming to the next blood type, that is type O. Type O has antibody A and antibody B, and type AB as a donor has antigen A and antigen B, therefore you do not give the blood. Then to the donor of type AB. The donor of type AB has antigen A and antigen B, and type A as a recipient has antibody B, which correspond with the antigen on the blood type of the donor. Therefore, you do not give the blood on this, you do not give the blood here. Same thing goes to the recipient of B. B has antibody A, and this has antigen A, so we do not give. Same thing with B negative. Then AB positive as a rhesus factor as a recipient, and AB negative as a donor does not have a rhesus factor. Negative to positive is positive, so we can give the blood. Then we consider the antibodies. This has no antibody, this has an antigen, therefore we give the blood. Then for the recipient, negative to negative, we can transfuse. Then there is no antibody, there are antigens. There is no antibody to fight any antigen there, therefore we give the blood. Then type O has antibody A and antibody B, and type AB has antigen A and antigen B. Therefore, there will be clumping, so there is no transfusion. Then to O positive as a donor, no antigen. Therefore, there is nothing for the antibodies to fight. There will be no clumping on it, and here has an antibody B, so we can transfuse the blood. But we consider the rhesus factor. This is positive to positive, which is a successful transfusion, so we give the blood. Positive to negative is going to be unsuccessful, so we do not transfuse the blood. Positive to positive, we transfuse. No antigen on type O, and there's an antibody here, so there's nothing for the antibody to fight against, therefore you transfuse the blood. Then for the type B negative, O negative as a donor O positive as a donor has a rhesus factor, and the recipient has no rhesus factor. Positive to negative is negative, therefore we do not transfuse the blood. Then going to AB positive as a recipient, while O positive is a donor. Positive to positive is positive, you can give the blood. Then we have no antibodies here and there is no antigen here, so we transfuse the blood. Then this O positive as a donor has a rhesus factor, and AB negative as a recipient has no rhesus factor, and we have positive to negative is negative, so we do not transfuse the blood. Then we have AB as the antibodies of blood type O positive, and O positive as a donor has no antigen too, therefore we transfuse the blood. Then a donor of type O positive has a rhesus factor, and the recipient of type O negative has no rhesus factor, so positive to negative will give an unsuccessful transfusion, which will lead to agglutination, so we don't give the blood. Then coming back to this O negative as a donor has no rhesus factor and it has no antigen, and A positive as a recipient has an antibody, so there is no antigen for the antibody to fight against, so there will be no clumping, and we have negative antigen rhesus factor to a positive rhesus factor, we give you a successful transfusion, so we give the blood. This has no rhesus factor, it has no antigen, therefore we can give the blood here. Same thing goes to it, the same factor, the same reason, no rhesus factor, no antigen at all, so we give the blood all through. So looking at this, when we check the chart, on the recipient side, we look at the part which we have positive all through. The AB positive can receive blood from every blood type, so we call the AB positive, we refer to them as a universal recipient. Then coming to the donor side, where we check, we see that O negative is a blood type that can give blood to every blood group. Therefore, we call the O negative as the universal donor. So looking at this, now we can categorically say that we know who can give whom blood. So who can receive blood from one another? With this chart, we can make reference to that. I believe with all this, every one of us have now gotten a deep understanding about how blood is being transfused, what is rhesus factor, what is antigen, and what are antibodies. And I've already corrected that we don't have the monkey gene, which some people have that belief of. Nobody has a monkey gene. It's just what we call the rhesus factor. Thank you very much. I remain Adenuga Ajibola. God bless you all.
Hello viewers, these are key messages from the Ministry of Basic and Secondary Education on the coronavirus. Dear parents, keep children at home at all times. Avoid sending children to shops and markets. Do not engage children in petty trading on the streets and garages. Allow children to play within the confines of the home. Limit visitors into your homes. Adhere to COVID-19 health precautions and guidelines. Schools are closed, but learning continues. Dear teachers, you are encouraged to desist from all forms of group activities involving students. All school premises should remain closed and not to be used for any other purpose. Thank you.
Have your say.
Fellow Gambians, my government has approved a $500 million emergency fund, which the Ministries of Health and Finance will work on for disbursement and use to fight COVID-19 menace.
xaalis bi tege yomb na waaye xam lu jafe mooy séddale bi ni ñu ko séddalee ak ndax danañ ko jox ñi ko yeeyoo wala duñ leen ko jox loolu moo jara laajte.
cause loo xam ne la nit yee tax ñu joxe ko te nit ñi ñoo leen fa teg te xaalis nit yi la comme xaalisi population bi la wax dëgg yàlla li gënoon mooy ku nekk gis sa boppa
man su ma sañoon daal ñu séddoo ko nu mu waroo buñ si def xaaj loo ñii diw nañ ko si ku nekk loo war a am nga am ko.
askan bi seen dem ak dikk bu ñu wàññee mu jël ko def ko si loolu noonu participer ko si loolu noonu ba nga xam ne danañ mën a ànd ak moom si wàññi suñu dem ak suñu dikk.
génne leen xaalis bi nañ ko génnee ñu def ko ñu defar suñu réew mi defar réew nag da nga koy commencé njàng mu baax nit ñi di faju feebar di faju tan feebar di faju dafa xemul kombo loolu affaire bi du kombo rek nañ génne ci àll bi yëpp ñu defar fa hôpital li war man mi nekk kombo moo war ka nekk fototo moo war ka nekk Paka Ndiogu moo war ko nekk feneen.
waaye nit doo ko mën a wax mu teg këram joxuloo ko dara lu mu lekk soo ñun balaa corona dañu rey xiif moo ñoo rey.
nguur bi su nekkee ne 500 millions Gambie ñaata population bi ñun ñaata lañ.
2 point or 1 point.
ok 2 point boobu noonu su nekkee dañ ko war a séddale si nit ñi ku nekk ñaata la war a am.
million su bëri soosu noonu nañ ko xaaj jox xel benn xaaf ñu téyegum ñu jël beneen xaaf bi yóbbu ko ci communauté bi ñu téyegum.
silang ni nga arda ko bulu courant lu sorota ani borolu sayin pentanlu panande nyante hakilo falol fanan kanne
ya foko nga ta si suwo kono man sala million be maburu nga bulo kono man sana la kuol bebe kuo be kala jeto hanin min fankana fontolen ko nga ta si suwo kono fotolo man tara man sa do kuol nin karo fate man tara kejo
xaalis boobu dañ ko war a xaaj ñu jël xaaj bi dugal ko si wéru yaram bi ñaareel xaaj bi dugal ko si askan bi.
Have your say.
So this is part of the normal to do. Wash your hands clean, dry them, and if you have a hand sanitizer by your side, you use it. We are urging everybody to do that. contain COVID-19. We are in this together. Please stay safe, everybody.
dama kontaan bu baax sax si ñëw bi nga ñëw seet si suma tabax gi kontaan naa ci trop trop.
maa gën a kontaan bi ma ñëwee fekk sa tabax bi toll fii waaye nag man kontaanuma ci sama kër gi man.
lu xew.
ndax umpale wu loon ñoo bokkoon nekk Europe.
dëgg la
jamono yu ñu nekkee foofu yëpp man ak yow maa ngi am benn waay maa ngi ko yónnee xaalis bu bari pour mu sampal ma suma kër. te ba léegi tabax bi àggut fenn. te yow nga waxoon ma ne ma bi nga starté samp yàggul léegi nga toll fii.
li waral loolu nag mooy dama ànd ak waa Baluwo.
kon su ma la déggee Baluwo dañuy yëngu ci samp kër tamit.
ni ngay def nag yomb na da ngay log on to www.baluwo.com mun ngaa jënd ci ñoom ciment suuf banta weñ ba ci daaj yi nga xam ne di nga ko soxla lépp lu jëm ci wàllu samp rek mun nga koo am ci lu yomba ak Baluwo daal yaay dugal sa xaalis fi nga ko bëgg a amee ko ci ni nga ko bëggee.